Hi, my name is Paul. I'm an alcoholic. And it's good to be here and it's good to be sober. And the committee just left me a nice note here. Paul, it's been a wonderful morning so far. Try not to screw it up, you know. Okay. Thank you very much for that. You know, it's good to be here and it's good to be sober. And it's a privilege and an honor to be here today. And one I don't take lightly. And it's so good to be back here meeting with my brothers and sisters here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I especially want to thank some of my friends from my home group and where I live in Rockaway Beach. And Rockaway Beach, some people call it the Irish Riviera. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we call it cirrhosis by the sea, you know. There's two types of people in Rockaway Beach, those that are in AA and those that should be in AA, you know. And the legal age to drink is 4'11", and it's so nice to see them here this morning now with no cash bail. They were all able to come here this morning, you know. But listen, we got some non-alcoholics here today, and I want to welcome you to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. You hear a lot of stuff, you know, 10 questions if you're an alcoholic, 20 questions if you're an alcoholic. Well, maybe this will sort of sort it out for you. There's a guy who's 25 years sober, and he meets this woman, you know these dating websites, and he meets this woman, they went on a blind date together. And she's a normal drinker. He's got 25 years sober in the program. And they're sitting through dinner, and eventually she says, I notice you don't drink. He says, no, I don't drink. She goes, you don't drink at all? Not at all. She goes, not even one drop? He says, not even one drop. She says, what would happen if you took a drink of my wine? And he sat back and he said, well, just imagine you wake up. You don't know what day it is. You don't know what time it is. Your phone's gone. Your car's gone. Your money's gone. Your credit cards are gone. She says, that would happen to you if you took one drink. He says, no, what happened to you if I took one drink? And if you think that's funny, you're probably an alcoholic. And if you don't think it's funny, may I recommend the Worldwide Fellowship of Al-Anon, you know? Just joking, I absolutely love Al-Anon. But actually, I'll be quite honest with you, I'm actually fascinated by non-alcoholics. I look at non-alcoholics like watching a National Geographic special, you know, like watching the March of the Penguins or the Flight of the Wildebeest, you know. Look at this guy, he's got a full drink in the bar, he's putting on his coat, he's giving the bartender a tip, and he's going home. Well, I'll be a son. I often tell this story. I was at a wedding. I went to my niece's wedding back in Ireland. And I know this may come as a shock to some people here tonight, but I'm not from the neighborhood originally. It's about 35 years now since I left my native Cuba. And I'm from Northern Ireland, just outside of Belfast, and I'm home for my niece's wedding. And I'm sober, and I go up and get a round of drinks, and I bring them down to the table, and I hand them out. And about a couple of minutes later, my sister says to me, hey, can you get me another drink? That drink you just got me, I set it down, and I don't know where I set it. I'm like, you mean you lost it? I'm like, how the hell do you lose a drink? You know what I'm saying? I've lost my car, you know, I understand that, you know. A lot of the streets in New York City, they all look the same, you know. I've lost a few days in the calendar, there's 30, 31, you know. But I'm thinking to myself, I've never lost a drink, you know. And that's because I'm an alcoholic and I belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's so good to be with these people. Isn't it so good in life to know who you are and where you belong? My name is Paul and I'm an alcoholic. That tells me who I am and what I am and where I am and what I need to be doing. And if I make that the central fact of my life, Things around may not be okay. If I'm waiting for things around me to be okay before I'm okay, I might be in for a long wait, but I'll be okay. So it's so good in life to know who you are and where you belong. I'm an alcoholic, and I belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. It just frees up so much of the hard drive. I'm not a booze fighter anymore. I've surrendered to the bottle, by the bottle. I belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll be honest with you, sitting here this morning, looking at all these pictures on the wall and the people here from the different parts of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll be honest with you, I never took sobriety for granted. I was always very grateful to be sober, but I took AA for granted. Like it's always been here, like oxygen. And then you come to things like this and you learn a bit about your history and you realize that this is a miracle not only of the 20th century, but all centuries. There's been people like us, ran at life with drink, ran a life away from drink. We were society's first outcasts. And then because of two men in the 20th century, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, there's a place for me to go on the worst day of my life and be given a new life in Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, really, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only place I know in the world that you can live two lives in one lifetime. And the story of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's so incredible. I mean, if you were to write the story down in a novel and bring it to a publisher and go, here, I've got this idea for a novel. You're going to love this. You've got this drunken doctor. He's not even a doctor, he's a proctologist. And you've got this other guy in New York. He's not even a stockbroker, he's a stock speculator. And these two guys, listen, this is the good part. These two guys are going to come together and start the greatest spiritual movement in the history of world civilization to help alcoholics. You say this can't happen, but God's in charge. Isn't it so? It makes so much sense that God would use alcoholics to get other alcoholics sober. I should speak for myself. I don't listen to nobody. People have been trying to help me since I was a kid. Teachers, friends, family, loved ones. Nothing worked. Is it any coincidence when Lois Wilson, the wife of Bill Wilson, wrote her story? It was called When Love Is Not Enough. If love could have got me sober, I'd have been sober a long time before AA. Good people that cared for me deeply tried to help me, but there was never enough. And then Alcoholics Anonymous, two guys from the old South Bronx group, Jerry C. and Johnny K., regular guys. One guy was a subway conductor, the other guy was a commercial removals guy. And that group had a mantra: we don't give up on anybody. And they came to my apartment that day, and I thought they were going to talk about my drinking. But the ironic thing is, they came into my apartment that day, and they didn't talk about my drinking. They talked about their drinking. And they told story after story of their drinking. And then the magic happened. You see it here this morning. Our most prized possession, identification. They talked about them, and I found out about me. Isn't that what happens in Alcoholics Anonymous? We speak this language here in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the language of the heart. My disease likes to operate from the neck up. That's where my alcoholism lives. This disease wants me talking to me about me. That's a conversation I can't have. That's a conversation that never ends well. And there's a wonderful in Alcoholics Anonymous. I hope and pray I never talk to an alcoholic. I hope I never talk at an alcoholic. I hope I never get up in the spiritual hilltop and talk down to an alcoholic. What is AA? You see it here this morning. What is Alcoholics Anonymous? It's one alcoholic talking with another alcoholic to remove feelings of differentness, separateness, uniqueness. I am you and you are me. As Liz says, without you, there's no me. There's one lifeboat called Alcoholics Anonymous. They use that sort of analogy in the big book. My disease would tell me, get your own lifeboat. My disease might even tell me at times, you could swim to shore, it's not that far. I got to stay right in the lifeboat of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's none of my business who's sitting next to me. That's God's business. It is my business if I'm willing to help that person or be helped by that person. And the togetherness that we have here. You know, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about, and we agnostics, the old ancient theory that the world was flat. And in some respects, the AA world is a flat earth. If you go to the age of Alcoholics Anonymous, you go off. And the thing about going to the age of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a drift, almost a glacial drift. And you don't realize you're going till you're gone. And by the time you get to the age of Alcoholics Anonymous, if there's any signposts, they're in a language you don't speak anymore and a language you don't understand anymore. Because we speak that certain language, the language of the heart. It is not so true. Dr. Bob says in his story, he said when he first met Bill Wilson, it was the first man he had ever met in his life that he felt fully understood him. And not because he read it in a book somewhere. And that's Alcoholics Anonymous. What's the old saying? The doctor would treat the symptoms and the alcoholic would die drunk. The clergyman would look for the lack of religious conviction and the alcoholic would die drunk. The psychiatrist would look at the causes and the alcoholic would die drunk. The families would try to treat the effects and the alcoholic would die drunk. Until June 10th of 1935. Those other things are important. Don't get me wrong, but there's a hierarchy of recovery in AA. We say first things first. And nothing has ever worked in the history of this world better than one alcoholic working with another alcoholic. So I feel so blessed to be here this morning. Isn't it so good to walk into a room and know who you are and where you belong? And be given the grace not to drink. And Alcoholics Anonymous is so much more than grace, it's mercy. And the definition of mercy I like the best is entering into the chaos of another person's life. And that's exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous did for me back in August of 1992. The few people left in my life was going that way. The only people coming this way was Alcoholics Anonymous. And they carried this message. My message mightn't even keep me sober. And what is the message of Alcoholics Anonymous? When complete defeat through alcohol. I got a body that won't let me drink and a mind that won't let me stop. One drink creates a thirst I can't quench. When I try to control my drinking, I don't enjoy it. When I start to enjoy my drinking, I can't control it. With your help, I haven't had a drink, as I said, from August of 92. One drink this morning, destination unknown. That's what showed up here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you good people took me from a place of powerlessness and unmanageability, not to a place where I'm powerful, that would be ego, but a place where I have access to power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, an unlimited supply. So if you're new here today, stay right in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I know we throw the word miracle around a lot in AA, but I don't think it's ubiquitous or overused. If you're people here with days, if you're new here today, and this is not some sales pitch, I bet my life on this on a daily basis. There's a miracle here with your name on it. Nobody can take it for you, and nobody can take it from you. Come into Alcoholics Anonymous. All the way in, sit all the way down, and start to live the life that your higher power always wanted you to live. George Eliot, the writer, says, it's never too late to live the life you're meant to live. And that's been my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. So please, I know we threw the word miracle. What is a miracle? The definition I like the best is a complete reversal or upheaval of the laws of nature. It's in my nature on a Sunday morning to be lying drunk somewhere with a bottle hanging out of my mouth. And I'm not. It didn't happen because of me. It only happened because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And why am I here this morning? I bartended the last 5 years drinking. And I bartended the first 12 years in AA. And I'll tell you something you probably know. Most alcoholics die drunk. They don't even darken the door of an AA meeting. And what does AA ever ask me to do? They didn't ask me to find a cure for cancer or go to... All they ever asked me to do is to stay sober and help another alcoholic. What do the kids say now? Stay in your lane? That's my lane. Stay sober and help another alcoholic. And in doing that simple thing, I have been so grossly overpaid. Not cash and prizes. So grossly overpaid. It's ridiculous. The things of real value that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. What do they say alcoholism is? The inability to find a true and lasting relationship. I walked in here this morning, and not the wonderful thing about coming here this morning to these things. In a friendship, there's all these parameters like you didn't call me or you got to call more. We're a fellowship. And a fellowship is so much different. I walked in here this morning. There's people I haven't seen in 3 years, 4 years, and we just take off from where we left off. It's not like, hey, you didn't call me. What happened? Your phone broke during COVID? We just picked up like, hey, how you doing? And off we go. I love that fact in Alcoholics Anonymous. We're all in this together. And seeing the people new here this morning, everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous has got worth and value. This is God's economy. And whether you're sober one day or 66 or 67 years, everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous has worth and value. Everyone. AA is the only place I know in the world where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And everybody, we all come here and we throw our little bit in the middle. You know what's going on in this room at 1 o'clock this afternoon? Nothing. Maybe before I'm finished talking. But there's something going on in here now. I brought my little bit in, you brought your little bit in. What did John Kennedy say? A rising tide lifts all boats. And everybody in here's got worth and value in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm just thinking, I'm so glad I see Pat over here. I could close my eyes right now and see Ronnie. He loved this breakfast. He loved the Jones Beach meeting. I could just close my eyes now and see him going through the tables, saying hello to people and whatnot. What a guy. Talk about service. And Ronnie, I know he's here. I know he's here this morning. And even though his higher power asked him to carry his light into a different room, boy, did he live a long shadow on this side of the curtain. The people that the man helped in Alcoholics Anonymous. So Ronnie, God bless you. It's so good to be with you here this morning, you know. I don't know why I'm an alcoholic. Was it nature? Was it nurture? Was I born an alcoholic? Did I become an alcoholic? Did I cross the invisible line? You know the old AA joke in AA, what came first, the chicken or the keg, you know? And a lot of guys that got drunk trying to figure that one out. I just accept the fact today that I'm an alcoholic, like I said earlier on. But I look back at my life. Carl Jung, that was a great friend of AA, said that alcoholism can be characterized as a low-grade spiritual thirst. I was looking for something. Always looking for that outside fix, but what's really an inside job. And my life was characterized, that stone in the shoe feeling, When I was over there, I wanted to be over here. And the shine would wear off things very quickly. My life was characterized by, oh, this is it. No, that's not it either. Oh, no, this is it. No, that's not it either. And then someone put a drink in my hand. Bill Wilson says he discovered liquor. Non-alcoholics don't discover liquor. They either drink or they don't drink. We discover liquor, you know. And I remember taking that drink as a 15-year-old kid, just shy of my 16th birthday. And I took that drink. Most people drink because what alcohol does to them. Our big book talks about it. A sense of conviviality, a social lubricant. I drink because what alcohol does for me. Alcohol does something for me that it doesn't do for a normal or even a heavy drinker. One drink changes how I feel about me, you, and this. And that's why I'm going to come back for more, no matter what the consequences are. I took that first drink. The stone came out of the shoe. The knot came out of the stomach. I could be everything I thought you wanted me to be. And for a chronic people pleaser with low self-esteem, it was a magic elixir. But it was a Faustian bargain. I made a deal with the devil. Booze will give you a lift, but it says in our literature, it's a herbaceous creditor. When it came in the Merchant of Venice, Shylock just wanted 1 pound of flesh, not this disease. It'll take your job, your car, your wife, the shirt off your back. But what it really wants is me 6 feet under. There's a lot of terminal diseases out there. I'm not familiar with those, but I'm familiar with this one. This disease, alcoholism, will kill me stone dead with or without booze in my body. I don't need booze in my body to burn my life to the ground. I almost done it in AA because I wouldn't accept these spiritual principles. I wouldn't accept the fact that there was more wrong with me than drink, and it was going to take more than not just drinking to get me well. But you couldn't have told me that 15 years of age, standing with that beer in my hand. And I know it's coming up the holidays soon. I love that movie, A Christmas Carol. They got the ghost of the past and the present and the future. When I was taking that first drink, if the ghost of my alcoholic future had tapped me on the shoulder that morning and said, I want to show you something. Look in that window. You see that guy drinking around the clock against his own will? You see that guy who's pushed away everybody who mattered in his life? You see that guy who has quicksand stretched around him in all directions? That will be you in 15 years. I'd have said, no, you're out of your mind. You must be thinking of somebody else. But that's exactly what happened. I'm not a violent man. I wouldn't let another man come close to doing to me what I allowed alcohol to do to me. I'm not a violent man. Only ever had one bar fight, and that was a draw. Although most people watching said that she won, you know. So we'll move quickly on from that, you know. But I've heard people tell different stories from, you know, they had a modicum of success and then they crossed the invisible line. There's some people very successful. That's not my story. I come out of the starting blocks flat on my face. Within 6 months of that first drink, I'm getting my stomach pumped out on a school night in the local hospital back in Northern Ireland. And they told my parents, it's a good job you brought him here. He probably would have died of alcoholic poisoning. I was just turned 16. And it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. But the good news, if you're new here this morning, sobriety's progressive as well. Now, I'm not going to stand up here like some snake oil salesman. There's things I lost through drinking, and they didn't come back. There's things you might have lost through drinking, and they might not come back. Thank God for this program. Who among us could live with the guilt and the shame and remorse of our drinking if it wasn't for the 12 steps to alleviate that? I wasn't a sociopath. I knew the bridges I burned, the doors I slammed, the people I walked away from. I can't change the past. Because of those steps, I'm able to come to terms with my past today. So my life's fallen apart in short order in Northern Ireland. It's the height of the Troubles over there, like a low-level civil war. I'm a working-class Catholic from the wrong side of the tracks. I had a big chip on my shoulder. In fact, when I got to AA, a guy says to me, "You know something? You're a well-balanced guy." I thought, finally, somebody that knows what's going on around here, you know. He said, "Yeah, you got a chip on both shoulders, you know. Hated everything, hated everybody. My life's falling apart, but I don't want to look in. I'm a finger pointer. I'm blaming Northern Ireland, the Troubles, this, you know, geographical cure." I come home to my father one night, typical alcoholic, dramatic. I said, "Dad, sit down. I got some bad news for you." He says, "What is it?" I said, "I'm going to America, and don't try and talk me out of it." He's like, "Talk you out of it? Help you pack." On you go, Columbus. Let me give you some follow advice. Turn left at Greenland, you know. I know we got some new people here this morning who don't know this, but Columbus was actually an alcoholic. It's a very little known fact. Because when you think about it, when he set off, he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. When he got back, he didn't know where he had been. And he got a woman to pay for the trip, not once, but twice. So he was probably an alcoholic. So I jump in a plane out to America. The first thing I'm packed out of the case is me and my alcoholism. I end up in Rockaway Beach. And I mean, we got that built-in GPS system, you know. I get a job as a bartender in Rockaway Beach. Now, you people look like you drank in nice bars. I worked in a bar. We had a bouncer on the door, but he was there to throw people into the bar, not throw them out of the bar. I mean, this bar had it all. Alcoholics, drug addicts, degenerate gamblers. And that was just the staff. That wasn't even the customers, you know. It was a sort of a bar. I'll give you a mental picture. You know the sort of a bar, if you want to steal a full set of teeth, you need 32 customers. You know, sort of high-end place. And ladies' night, oh my God, the women that come into this bar, they look like they put their makeup on when they were jumping up and down on a trampoline. I know it's Halloween today. I'm going to tell this quick story. The bar was taken over, and actually a guy from Farmingdale, another guy, and they had no idea, Rockaway Beach. And they told all these new ideas, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And the guy says, it was coming to Halloween. And he goes, "You know what we should do? We should have like a fancy dress Halloween party." I'm like, every night's Fright Night here, you know? Freddy Krueger's playing darts right now. So anyway, the prizes and door prizes and anyway, next thing you know, it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. I'm behind the bar. There are about 70 people out there, all in fancy dress and whatnot. I'm like, this is too good to be true. And then the witching hour came, 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, the witching hour in New York City bars. And a fight breaks out. Now, I don't mean a fight, I mean a Donnybrook. I mean like 20 people involved. And I'm standing behind the bar. It was almost surreal. And I look out and I see like wigs going here, masks going here, and I look over and I see a guy dressed as Superman on the floor getting his lights punched out by a guy who's dressed as a parrot. You can't make this stuff up. And his girlfriend, who obviously is dressed as Lois Lane, she said to me, "Do something, do something." I'm like, he's the one with the kryptonite. What do you mean, mate? One of the most surreal moments ever. I was the first and the last Halloween party at that place, you know. So my life's fallen apart in short order. I hit my first hospital when I was 25. Here's the ironic thing of this disease. The worst years of my drinking, I hope they were the worst, 27 to 30, was after I made a firm conviction not to drink anymore. I would do what it says in chapter 3. I'm putting X's on calendars, and I'll stop for this and I'll stop for that. I could stop, but I couldn't stay stopped. You know what AA has given me that I can never repay them for? They've given me something between me and the first drink. Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had nothing between me and the first drink. Today, not because of me, because of you good people and this program, that we can thank Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith. Right here, right now. I don't know about tomorrow, but right here, right now, I'm 12 steps away from a drink. 12 steps away. And that's a quantum leap from when I first came in here, but don't get me wrong. They're not 12 steps up to anything. They're 12 steps down to humility. I've seen people drinking in AA that I thought would never drink again. And that tells me, I hope I never forget, it's a daily reprieve, not a lifetime pardon. And there's certain things I must do if I want to enjoy this way of life. The only way that I coast in AA is downhill. There's a friend of mine drank after a long time in AA. He said, you know how you get drunk in AA, Paul? You start to give those steps back one step at a time. Take your will back in 3. Become insane in 2. So insane you tell yourself you're not an alcoholic and get drunk in the first step. I don't know about tomorrow, but right here, right now, I'm 12 steps away from a drink. And that was not the case. I would come out of, I almost went to the graveyard thinking I had a drinking problem. Our book talks about it. A drinking problem is solved by not drinking. It gives a couple of examples. A medical reason, a romantic reason. And those people can stop or even moderate. But then it talks about somebody like me. What about the real alcoholic? I don't have a drinking problem. I have alcoholism. And that's a horse of a different color. Yes, it's physical. You can't enjoy the benefits of being sober and drink booze at the same time. But it's also mental and spiritual, and in my case, wrapped up in a body full of childish, sick emotions. I need everything that's on offer here. I need the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, the home group, the sponsorship. I need all that stuff. If you're new here today, maybe these 12 steps and 12 traditions seem like a foreign concept. We have a symbol in AA. It's a triangle inside a circle, and there's 3 parts to it. Unity, service, and recovery. I believe, and I bet my life on this also, that you can put all 3 parts of that triangle into your life from your very first meeting. Unity. We do together what I can't do alone. Many meetings make it easy, few make it hard, none make it impossible. I need you, you need me. As Liz says, without you, there's no me. Service. They told me if you put away one more chair than the one you sat on, you've done service in AA tonight. Congratulations. Recovery. Maybe the 12 steps seem like a foreign concept. We have slogans in AA. Easy does it. Live and let live. One day at a time. They were like the banisters to the steps. As I put my foot on step 1, they kept me steady. Now I'm here to tell you from personal experience, not in the theoretical. You can stay dry on 2 parts of the triangle. I've done it. You can even stay dry on 1 part of the triangle. I've done that too. But if I want to get free from the one guy I could never get free from, me, and live in the one place I could never live, right here, right now, I got to put all 3 parts into my life. I got to do it every day. But what a small price to pay for the life that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. I remember one time I was in Las Vegas. I don't gamble, but I like to watch, you know, and I'm in Caesar's Palace, and they got this side room, and you see the guys playing high stakes Texas Hold'em, and the guy stands up, maybe you've seen it on TV, and he got all his chips, and he says, I'm all in. And I thought to myself, what a great metaphor for Alcoholics Anonymous. I got to be all in, and I got to be all in every day. because the disease of alcoholism is all in every day. Like just what we've been through this last couple of years, my alcoholism didn't go, oh, there's a pandemic, I'll see you next year when there's a vaccine. It come on even harder, trying to separate me, divide me. AA unifies and we get well. The disease divides, separates, divides, right in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. So my life's falling apart, and I'll just give you one vignette that just sums up the difference between a drinking problem and alcoholism. I'm in a bar one night, actually one morning, and I collapsed in an alcoholic seizure. And I woke up in the local hospital, Peninsula, and they be strapped down to a restraining sheet. And they give me some Librium. That wasn't my first trip to this hospital. And they give me some Librium to get me off the ceiling. And there's a woman standing by the bedside with this on-again, off-again relationship. And I took her hand. And I wasn't trying to be cinematic. But I took her hand and I said, this is it. I'm done. It's over. That's it. I will never, ever drink again. I'm finished. I know I can't drink. I will never drink again. As Bill Wilson says in his story, self-knowledge, surely that's the answer. No, it's not. Knowing I'm an alcoholic will not keep me sober. It's good information, but that alone will not keep a guy like me from drinking again. I need everything else that's on offer. And I left that hospital convinced that I wasn't going to drink. If you'd have put me in a lie detector machine in the lobby of that hospital, I would have passed with flying colors. I meant it at a visceral level. I'm done. It's over. But I left that hospital, even with all that conviction. I really didn't know what the problem was, step 1. I really didn't know what the solution was, step 12. And I had none of you good people to bring me between the two. One more time, it was me against the first drink. And up until this moment this morning, I have never, by myself, beaten an obsession to drink. I've gotten into the ring many times. It's like getting in the ring with a heavyweight champion. A child could say, don't get in the ring. But don't get in the ring means don't take the first drink. And I don't know how not to take the first drink. So I keep getting back in the ring. Perhaps you can identify. And I tell myself, the epitaph of the alcoholic. It'll be different this time. I'll really watch it. The minute it starts to get out of control, I'm going to pull it right back in again. What I don't realize, the fight is fixed. There's no way I'm ever going to win this fight. And it was one more attempt at not drinking, followed by one more ad infinitum, as our book says. As I said there earlier on here, I'm a recipient of an old-fashioned 12-step call. I feel so blessed to be here this morning. I think of the gifts that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. I was just talking to a couple of guys there. I'm hoping to go home after Christmas. I haven't been home in 3 years. My mother's in a nursing home in Ireland with dementia. And every time around this year when I was drinking, she would call every year. Hey, Paul, can you come home for Christmas this year? And like the song says, I would be like, Mom, I'll be home for Christmas. You can count on me. Christmas would come. Christmas would go. No show. Because you put a drink between me and you, no matter how much I love you, you're coming in second place, whether I want to be like that or not. Thank God for this program. I remember one Christmas Eve, here was a guy going to make it big in America. I'm living in the Bronx, in a basement, on a mattress. I had a huge abscess in my mouth. I'd got the money together twice to go to a dentist. I drank it both times. I lay down. The phone's ringing. I pick up the phone. There's a 5-hour time difference between here and Ireland. They're 5 hours ahead. And it was my mother's voice. And she says to me, Paul, I went to midnight mass tonight and I prayed for you. And I'm thinking, don't pray for me. I'm beyond the beyond. I ain't coming back. I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. I could not see a way from there to here. If you're new here this morning, you cannot get from where I was to where I am here this morning without Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an impossible journey. And why do I continue to come? I know the movie goes to see someone else walking in that door on the worst night of their life and be given the grace not to drink. And it'll be shortly after that I would get sober. I just told you about those two men. I remember, it's amazing when somebody's telling their story and it goes down and it goes down. And then there's still those beautiful words, and then. Everyone in here has had an and then moment. And this is mine. In the apartment, here's a recipe for unhappiness. Lock yourself in an apartment, close the curtains, drink round the clock, and listen to the saddest music. I used to listen to stuff like the great Warren Zevon. If you won't leave me, I'll find somebody that will. Sort of songs alcoholics like to listen to. Or the Al-Anon version of that song, if you leave me, can I come too? I'm just joking. Before I get stoned to death with Al-Anon literature in the parking lot, you know. And a piece of paper come under my door. I thought it was an eviction notice. I picked up the piece of paper. It said what I've been hearing since 15. You're a nice guy, but you drink too much. Had a man's telephone number on. I told you earlier on. The strange thing is, I called the number. Irish, stoic, don't tell nobody nothing. I built these walls high and deep. You weren't getting in, but I wasn't getting out. And this guy came over. Changed my life. Two guys from the South Bronx group. My life has never been the same since that moment. Has my life been perfect? Far from it. But my life has never been the same since those two men came to my apartment armed with the facts about themselves. And they talked about their drinking. And they brought me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Walking through the doors of AA is the greatest singular event in my life. Everything is secondary and tertiary. And I'm so glad there wasn't a guy with a clipboard at the door saying, hey, check the box for what you want. I would have checked the box for not drinking and would have been delighted. I would have shortchanged myself. Yes, I got that, but I got so much more. I got you back, I got me back, and I got him back, and I'd lost a whole lot. At that first meeting, I don't know what was said at that meeting, but when I left, I felt this feeling inside my stomach. I didn't know what it was that night, but I know this morning what it is. It was hope. I believe that's what AA, if we were to take AA, all the stuff that we have, and bring it down to its purest form, it's hope in human form. People get people sober. I haven't seen God at a meeting yet, but I know he's here this morning. And he uses this fellowship like a spiritual conduit to spread his love and grace. The wonderful thing about AA, we speak this language of the heart. Isn't it amazing? If you're new here this morning, don't worry. AA will meet you exactly where you are. You don't have to go and meet AA. AA will meet you exactly where you are. The same steps are on the wall today that when I walked into that meeting 29 years ago. The steps don't change. It's not like you're 10 years sober and they go, okay, Paul, come up to the front. We want to give you the steps that you get when you're 10 years sober. Here you go. Oh, you're 20 years sober. Here you go. The program, so the steps don't change. That can only mean one other thing. I'm changing. And that's why this program never gets old, never gets stale, because it'll meet you exactly where you are. In the last few minutes here, I'm sure my friend John coming up, but I would like to tell you that I took the ball and I scored a touchdown. Our book talks about let go absolutely of your old ideas. And I came into AA with a lot of old ideas. Barroom mentality. Barroom mentality that might serve me well at 2 o'clock in the morning, some gin mill, but were not helping me in AA. I was doing unity. I was going to plenty of meetings. I was doing service. I said, I'm making more coffee than Juan Valdez. Are you kidding me? Service? But I wouldn't do door number 3. I wouldn't do recovery. The steps seem touchy-feely. I said, I do these steps, I'll have wind chimes hanging up around the house, you know. I'll be wearing flip-flops, even in the winter time, you know. Joining Oprah's book club, you know what I mean? And I'm here to tell you, you can fool them at the coffee pot at 7:30 at night. I've done it. But you know when untreated alcoholism will come to visit me? 2 o'clock in the morning. Could-haves, should-haves, would-haves, guilt, shame, remorse. And every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, there'd be a book that would magically appear on my bedside table. Where I Should Be in My Life by Now by Paul McQ. You start reading that thing at 3 o'clock in the morning with no drink and no program, you're ready to put a rope over the rafters. And a guy came up to me one night at a meeting, not my sponsor. And he said, can I talk to you, Paul? I said, sure. He says, you're dying. And you're dying in AA. You're like a starving man at a spiritual banquet. Just like this morning, there's all this food on offer, and you're living over here in bread and water. How do I know that? Because I did the same myself. And that's exactly what I was doing. 2.5 years, I often tell this story, 2.5 years off drink. I wasn't convinced. The next day, I'm driving out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. This is 2.5 years with no drink and no program. Punching holes. I'm not that guy. That's not who I am. I'm driving on the Gowanus Expressway, rush hour traffic. A guy cuts me off. Oh, really? I chase after him. I'm blocking 3 lanes of rush hour traffic on the Gowanus. I get out of the car. I'm out of my mind. I go back to the car. There's an Asian man sitting behind the wheel shaking. His wife's crying in the passenger seat, and his 3 children are crying in the back of the car. This is 2.5 years off drink with no program. I never did a stunt like that drinking. Here I am doing it, quote unquote, in sobriety. I apologized. I drove to my sponsor's house in name only. Sober a long time, but you can only help somebody who wants to be helped. You can bring a horse to water. You can make him thirsty, but you know how that ends. And he was sitting smoking a big cigar on his porch. I says, Jimmy, I got to talk to you. He said, what is it? I told him what I just told you. And he sat back and he goes, how old were you when this happened? This happened 20 minutes ago. We're getting like lost in translation here. I got to get you hooked on phonics, the Shamrock version, bring you up to speed. But he coined that, Harry Tebow, a great friend of AA, not an alcoholic, but understood alcoholism, coined a phrase for people like me, His Majesty the baby. He said, you're a child in a man's body. If you don't get into this program and start to grow up in this program, your life's going to go unlived in sobriety, and that's on you. So I started putting pen to paper. Is it nice to do the steps of AA and find out who you are and who you're not? Yeah. Is it nice to get a full knowledge of your condition? Yeah. But when did my life catch on fire? When I turned around and tried to bring another man through the program. That's when great events came to pass in my life. Is my life perfect today? No. People that are new, sobriety is not easy. I'm not going to stand up here. Sobriety is not easy. The roller coaster goes up and the roller coaster goes down. Just don't get off. Stay on. Ride it out. You know? Getting sober is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, except one other thing. Drink yourself to death. And I got into the cause and effects of my drinking. There's a story here, it's a Sunday morning. Some people would say it's a religious story, but it's really a spiritual story of the prodigal son. And we're all prodigal sons and prodigal daughters. You know how that story goes. The guy goes off and he burns his life to the ground. He's got nothing left. And he comes back home again. His father thought he was dead. And his father's like, what, my son's still alive? Throws a big party for his son. Now, I read that story many, many times. There's someone pointed out something to me that I never noticed. It never actually says that the son goes back into the house. It says he comes up. If you're new here today, you've been called to the banquet Now, why you're here today, that's between you and your higher power. But you've been called to the spiritual banquet. Don't do what I do and settle for crumbs from the table. Pull up a chair and partake of everything that's on offer. That's what your higher power wants for you. Come all the way in and sit all the way down. Has my life been perfect? No. Life goes on. AA didn't give me immunity from life. It gave me the ability to deal with life on life's terms. Went through difficult times in sobriety. Got divorced when I was 20 years sober. Resentment to here. Have it up to here. But thank God I didn't go through it alone. You know what'll get you in trouble in AA when you've been sober for a while? Spiritual pride. How can I go to my home group and tell them my life's falling apart right in the middle of AA? I don't want to do a PowerPoint presentation, but somebody has to know what time of day it is in my spiritual world. And thank God I didn't go through that time alone. If I'm going through something alone in AA, it's because I want to. There's not one thing in this world that I have to go through alone. I got remarried in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got a 3-year-old daughter at home. I know what you're thinking. I don't look old enough to have a 3-year-old daughter. I get that all the time. That's my wife's greatest fear, that she's going to walk into the living room and realize that somebody's diaper needs changed and she's not sure if it's mine or the baby's. You can put the food away, nobody's eating anymore after that joke. In the last few minutes here, I'd like to tell you, if you'd have come to my apartment 29 years ago, what you would have seen was a guy sitting there drinking around the clock against his own will. I remember putting that bottle of vodka to my lips. And I'm not drinking for any good, I'm drinking for unconscious time. I just want to pass out and the pain that's my life. And I know what real life looks like. I can see it out the window. People going to work. But I can't do life on life's terms. And I remember putting the bottle to my lips and I think to myself, what the hell happened to me? What happened to that 7 or 8-year-old kid that wanted to run out the door with a soccer ball in his arm, thinking he was the next George Best? What the hell happened to me? That's gone. You come to my house today, you'll see life happening. Not a perfect life. You're looking for a perfect life, try the house next door. But you'll see life on life's. Got a daughter going to college. Where's the money coming from? But you'll see life happening today. Bill Wilson says AA is a bridge back to life. And I'm living all the concerns we have, but I'm living life today. My little I got the oldest girl's Kristen and my daughter's called Dahlia. My wife told me something there, the guys have heard me say this a couple of months ago. I come home from work and my wife says to me, you know what your daughter said when she woke up this morning? I said, what? She goes, the first words out of her mouth was, when my daddy comes home from work today, he's going to put me in the back of the bicycle and bring me to the park. I almost burst into tears because that's what we do in the summertime. I come home from work, I put her in the back of the bicycle, and I take her to the park. Now, I tell the guy next door to me who's a non-alcoholic, you know what my daughter said? I'm like, what do you want, a medal for bringing your daughter to the park? But I tell you people, you get it. Because you know, and I hope I never forget, you put one drink in me. Ain't nobody going to the park. I may end up living in the park. That little girl in her 3-year-old mind doesn't know Dr. Bob from Dr. Zeus. Doesn't know the big book from Hans Christian. But she knows in her little mind that her daddy's going to come home today and take her to the park. And I know that's only because I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't do that. We do that. And these are the gifts. So if you're new here today, Clancy used to talk about the golden memories. The golden memories that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. Far more than I deserve. Isn't life like that? It's lived forward but understood backwards. And I look back at my life and I see God was always there, even in the ups and downs. And the life, far from perfect, but the life that I have here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't do it alone. I don't want to do it alone. And I want to end on a few words that sums up how I feel about you and how I feel about Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the Irish blessing, and I wanted to offer it to you to go on your way later on today. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you so much.